need is clarity, a way of speaking about a genuine darkness in human being without diminishing the impact of what that is. We cannot afford cheap evil, lest we risk becoming unguarded about the real thing. I believe Reinhold Niebuhr's work can help us to be more precise.
Reinhold Niebuhr suggests it is the totalizing of our understandings of truth and justice that eventually and ironically turn back on itself, becoming injustice and evil.
Let me just remind you and myself that this panel that is sitting here today would not have been possible 40 years ago, maybe not 30 years ago. This panel in itself is an evidence of the fact that despite the ever-present possibility and reality of evil, there is also a growing good that humans can produce and commit themselves to.
So in a strange way, that pastor from Florida was a gift for all of us. And here's why. Because there has been a growing anti-Muslim bigotry in this country for some years now, and it has been hard to put your finger on. Well, that guy popped up and said, put your finger on me. I'm what anti-Muslim bigotry looks like.
Niebuhr, like prophets of old, spoke to criticize this, his nation, its country's leaders and people, for sinful practices of injustice and oppression, especially against the vulnerable and the poor.
And so he balances out the enthusiasms Americans sometimes get into, whether it's trying to spread democracy to the Middle East, trying to spread democracy around the world. And he prepares you, and this is something that Obama spoke with me about, he prepares you for the idea that if you're trying to do good around the world, you will be corrupted by it.
Part of our frustration, it seems to me, is, or shock perhaps, is a better word, for the Holocaust, for example, or catastrophic events like 9/11, is that we were brought up short, again, to realize the mystery of evil, rather than just the prevalence of bad deeds.
And I think the theological tradition understands that evil is enormously seductive. If you go all the way back to Genesis 3 and the serpent, we are seduced and deceived, so that when we do destructive things, it's not simply because we're stupid. We don't smoke because we're stupid. We don't engage in land wars in Asia because we're stupid. We do those kind of things because we're seduced. And we are fooled into thinking that somehow we can get by with this and make it work.
For people who may not understand him or know of him, or maybe only know him as the author of the Serenity Prayer, what would you tell them about him? How would you present him?
I think that Niebuhr's importance today consists in his ability to address the large issues of public engagement that the country faces today, and the questions about human nature that are perennial. Imagine somebody who could offer a cogent rationale for a conservative, or at least a highly cautious view of American intervention in military affairs. Same person who could offer a cogent rationale for a progressive social policy, and offer that with a view of human nature that was not Pollyannish. And I think you've touched on the main points, if you do, of Reinhold Niebuhr.
But we forget that between Bethlehem and between Calvary, there was this radical Christ who gave a new value system, who turned tables upside down, who called the religious leaders vipers and hypocrites. There was a radical Christ that talked about the poor, that said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He's anointed me to bring good news to the poor, sight to the blind, freedom to the captives. There was this radical Christ that said, whatever you do for the least of your sisters and brothers, you do for me. A radical Christ.
Jesus was a Jew to the day he died. Therefore, it makes no sense to tell his story as a story of Jesus against the Jews, as if he were not one of them. The religion of the church, therefore, is Jewish in its origins and in its essence, worshiping nothing but the God of Israel.
We have lots of religious organizations that think they can cure homosexual people. They ought to be arrested for practicing medicine without a license, and they do irreparable harm.
I don't think Islamophobia is about Muslims. I think it's about America. The great gift that this country gave the world was the idea that people from different religious, ethnic, national, racial backgrounds could come together and build a nation, that they could all contribute. And we see it in the founding documents of this country.
I think religious pluralism is America's first freedom. And on 9/11, as colleagues were just alluding to, we're having a struggle over branding 9/11 as anti-Muslim. And I think it's anti-American, and I think it's against the Constitution. And I believe that we need an exceptional amount of clarity about standing up for America's first freedom. This is, as Ibu was saying, this is about all of us. It's not a group. It's who do we want to be as a nation.
So this prejudice, which is very long and deep in Western and Christian tradition, in my opinion, creates serious limitations in objective understanding of Islam as a religion and culture and its modern history.
We are in the Hammersmith Memorial Chapel, right, in the Interfaith Prayer Chapel room, which is very interesting in and of itself, and we'll get into talking about that a little bit. Let's start with the fact that Elmhurst is a college of the United Church of Christ, right? So how is it encouraging you guys as students to really examine your own values and confront these bigger moral questions from your different faith perspectives? So why don't I start with Afia? You're a Muslim student, right? How would you answer that question in terms of Elmhurst asking those deeper questions of you?
Elmhurst has really promoted the dialogue. Just recently we had a forum on the meaning of life where students came together and we just talked about it. And we gave our own perspectives and we really learned from each other, along with our chaplains guiding us towards the deeper questions to really challenge us to ask ourselves that, because a lot of the time we're scared to. But they really promote us and they push us to do the right thing.
So Rachel, tell us a little bit about your faith tradition. I've been told that you're exploring some different things, and I'd love for you to share that a little bit with us.
Well, I grew up in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, the ELCA, a liberal Lutheran body, and my mom is a pastor in that tradition. But through the college faith search that I think everyone goes on in some way or another, I've really come to love Judaism, and so I'm exploring that path and studying that as much as I can right now, and we'll see where that goes.